All right, now we're going to move on again to some other prophecies. And if you're here at my YouTube and you want to see this particular article that I'm going to be talking about, the other ones, just go to my website, www.bibleprophecyman.com. And once you're there, you'll find the link. You can read the whole story. But this headline says, "Why are bees in decline? New research to provide the answers." Now, why am I bringing this up for the news? Well, let's get into a couple prophecies. Number one, look at Matthew chapter 24, verse 7. It says, "And there will be great earthquakes in many places." It says that there will be famines and pestilence is another word. You can replace it with diseases. And it also says that to be fearful sights and great signs there shall be from heaven. So we know exactly what to look for. In Revelation chapter 6, verse 6, we see the warning that Jesus Christ gives us there, that people will have to work all day long just for a quart of wheat. And that's just enough for one small meal for one person. So we know that because of people working all day long, that shows us that something happened to the food to drive the prices, that will drive the prices up, causing people to work all day long. The less food you have, the more expensive it becomes, and people have to work that much harder and that much longer to obtain that food. So, one of the major problems that this world can face is the decrease in the bee population. If they stop pollinating the plants, you're going to see many crops throughout the world just die off because they are not being pollinated. And this particular article says that 9 new studies will look at the role of pesticides, habitat loss, and disease in the decline of insect pollinators like the honeybee and the bumblebee. It says that our pesticides contributing to the collapse of the honeybee and wild bumblebee populations, is habitat loss taking away their food, their sources of food, and exactly what role do these insects play in pollinating our crops? Campaigners have argued for a number of years about the decline in importance and the importance of bees and other pollinators like butterflies, hoverflies, and moths to our planet's diversity of food crops. Now, nine projects funded as part of the Insect Pollinators Initiative will begin research into both their role and their reasons for their decline. Now, they are definitely declining. And this article talks about having a wider role in the ecosystem. And it will definitely play a major part in the ecosystem, because without the pollination, as I said before, of these bees pollinating the plants, you're not going to actually have the crops come to fruition. So if that happens, you're going to have a major problem throughout the world if the bees keep dying off. Now let me show you another article that just came out, and you'll be able to see this one pretty well. I believe it says millions of bees mysteriously die in Florida. Now, over the months, we've seen different articles like this about these bees by the millions dying off, and this is another one of those reports. It says Florida officials are abuzz at how now millions of honeybees were killed in the Brevard counties. Several beekeepers in the county have reported lost colonies this week. Charles Smith of Smith Family Honey Company told Stewart News Thursday he lost 400 beehives. He said the bees appear to have been poisoned, but they're actually not sure. It says, "I'll never get fully compensated for unless someone handed me 400 beehives." Smith lost, according to this article, it said that he lost $150,000 from this incident. And according to the news, it says state officials are testing the bees to determine what type of chemicals contributed to their deaths. And at this point, I'm not even sure if they know that it was really chemicals, but they do know that millions of these bees are dying. Now, if you do a Google search, you'll see a lot of information about the decline of bees and the how it's affecting the crops. And I believe that as the birth pangs continue and the ecology of the earth starts to break down, you're going to see more news like this, and eventually by the time that the tribulation begins, you're going to see the food surplus. It's really going to decrease. It's already decreasing, and part of the reason why is because the number of people now that the world has to feed. So now in my book, in chapter 5, I give you some information. Now keep in mind, and this is in reference to what the Lord told us about the signs in the sun, the signs in the sky. And on page 156 of my new book that just came out, this will be my August 30th book, I give you information about the ozone layer and the record that the ozone layer had produced in 2003. It says on September 17, 2003, USA Today told us that the ozone hole over the Antarctic this year had reached a record size of 10.8 million square miles set 3 years ago, the United Nations Weather Organization said. And then I give you some other news in 2006 from NASA showing us that the ozone layer is 11.4 million. And I give you a little picture there in the book that shows you what it looks like. Now, when you go to my site, you'll see pictures of that. But I want to show you a new article that came out today. Look at this. Now, you talk about the birth pangs that Jesus talked about in Mark chapter 13, verse 8. They're definitely continuing. Antarctic ozone loss at a record level. And this says the ozone loss over the Arctic this year was so severe that for the first time it could be called an ozone hole, like the Antarctic one scientists report. Now this goes on to say about 20 kilometers or 13 miles above the ground, 80% of the ozone was lost, they say. That cause was an unusually long spell of cold winter at altitude. In cold conditions, the chemicals that are released during cold seasons really add up, and it's a contributor to the destruction of the ozone layer. So we're seeing that according to this news. Now, let me when you go to my website, you're going to be reading information that I posted earlier in June of 2011. And in 2011, I talked about the sores. According to we see from the book of Revelation, you could read chapter 16, verses 8 through 11. And part of the warning there is that the sun is going to scorch the people in the last days. But when you read on, it says, and the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and the kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain, and blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores. And they repented not of their deeds. And obviously, in the first part of that, it says, and the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and the power was given unto him to scorch men with fire. So if you have a breakdown in the ozone layer, one of the things that the scientists tell you that you can have this radiation pouring through, and it will cause skin cancer. Now, when you go to my website, I'll show you a picture of what that looks like. And I'll give you information that I showed you back earlier in 2011. It says one of the factors leading to the crop destruction is ozone layer depletion. So again, we're bringing in famines, the crops destruction, because if you have intense heat coming down, burning up the crops, obviously you're going to have a crop destruction. So you just don't need the lack of or decline for the bees. You can have the sun, the intensity of the sun, plus a depletion of the ozone. There's so many different things that could destroy the crops. It's unbelievable as what we're seeing right now. So it goes on, the ozone layer has seen unprecedented damage in the Arctic this winter due to the cold weather in the upper stratosphere. By the end of March, 40% of the ozone in the stratosphere have been destroyed against a previous record of 30%. As of the news today, it said it was 80%. So you could see how much it went up just from June. Now, again, the article that came out today, you're going to see a picture of the ozone hole at my website, and you'll see that again, this 13 miles above the ground that's open, 80% of the ozone was lost. And the article does talk about the ozone layer and what kind of effects. And let me quote part of that article. It says the ozone layer blocks ultraviolet blue rays from the sun, which can cause skin cancer and other medical conditions. So when you read the scripture and you understand what the Lord is talking to us about in the last days, the scorching heat and the men that are having these sores, just put 2 to 2 together. You have a lack of ozone layer, you have intense heat. One of the things that it's doing is bringing on more cases of skin cancer, and I believe that this is going to be parcel and part for the birth pains that will continue on and reach their max during the tribulation period. And this news, for those who have been watching the signs of the times that Jesus told us, we don't see this as a coincidence. We've been expecting this because Jesus told us in many places of the scriptures, keep on the watch. And since he gave us very specific information on what to watch for, and we see this, then we know that Christ's words are being fulfilled. And what does that tell you? Well, that tells you that he's not that far off and that he's coming for his bride at any time, because there's nothing stopping from the Lord to come and removing the church, and then the 7-year period of tribulation would begin. So we need to really be focused in the Lord, reading his blessings, because those who believe in the Lord and have accepted Jesus Christ, we have nothing to fear, because he's going to remove the bride. Unless you have a lot to fear. If you don't know Jesus Christ, I wish I could take what I know in my mind and put it in your mind, because if you understood what's going to happen during the 7-year tribulation, you would not want to be there. And this is one of the reasons why I wrote the book, to show you that everything that the Lord said was coming to pass. And you only have today, really. You only have today, because you don't know what's going to happen to you tomorrow. So today is the day of salvation. And if this is the first time at my YouTube channel, you can go to my website, www.bibleprophecyman.com. Go there and read the information. You'll read what I was just talking about in chapter 5 today. So thank you very much, and we're going to scroll down to get some other news for today.